Let's go Dolphins! There's been some news recently that has sparked a debate among fans around the web, and I'll give you the lowdown on it. But before we get into today's hot topic, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any Dolphins updates. Now, let's get right to it because there's a lot to unpack here. So, the Dolphins started this offseason by letting some of our talent walk, like Andrew Van Ginkel, who has been outstanding since leaving. And it wasn't just that the Dolphins didn't match a big offer, they didn't even give him a chance to stay. That alone left some fans scratching their heads. Then came the wave of free agent signings, which helped ease the concern. But it's hard to shake the feeling that we overlooked a glaring need, especially with Tua's injury history. Why didn't we bring in a stronger backup quarterback to stabilize the offense if Tua had to sit out? And now, here we are, 2-5 on the season. Tua was knocked out in the second game and only recently returned, but now we're looking at an uphill battle. With a tough matchup against Buffalo on the horizon, this season is at a critical point. It's true that if we can get a good run going, perhaps winning almost every game, we can turn things around and finish with a 10-7 record. That would likely get us into the playoffs. But let's be honest, pulling off a win against the Bills will be a huge challenge. I'll be rooting for a comeback, but we have to face reality as well. So here's the question of the day. Is it time for the Miami Dolphins to consider trading some assets and start building for the future? The 2024 season has been disappointing, and the front office has to decide if it's time to shift gears. Maybe it's time to trade older players for valuable draft picks. If the Dolphins can build up strength for future seasons, it might be worth exploring some moves now, especially with the trade deadline approaching. If you're in favor of making a trade, who would you suggest? Would you move a veteran player like Odell Beckham Jr. if the right offer came along? Speaking of Odell, let's talk about his current situation with the Dolphins. We know OBJ is an elite talent, but he's been underutilized here in Miami. He's barely seen any action on the field and is clearly frustrated. This week, he posted on social media about his lack of involvement, saying, "Tell them when they make the edit, show them everything." That was definitely a shout-out to the work he's been putting in on his routes and the fact that he's not getting the ball. The frustration is building, and it's not just in his head. OBJ's usage has been surprisingly low, and he hasn't recorded a single reception this season. Against the Patriots on October 6th, he was targeted just once. Then, 2 weeks later against the Colts, he was targeted twice, still no catches. And last week, even with Tua back, Odell wasn't targeted at all. It's no wonder he might feel like his talents aren't being utilized. There's a lot to consider here. Beckham has been one of the best receivers in the league, but if he isn't integrated into the offense, it begs the question, could he be a trade piece? If the Dolphins decided to make a move, would Odell want to stay in Miami? Maybe he wants to see if Tua can build some chemistry now that he's back on the field. But if things don't change soon, OBJ's frustration could reach a breaking point. Back to the big picture, Dolphins fans, we're looking at a season that didn't live up to expectations. The front office has decisions to make about the direction of this team, especially with assets like Beckham. Maybe it's time to focus on building a stronger foundation for next year by bringing in younger players or adding draft picks. What do you think? Should the Dolphins keep our veterans and try to make a push, or is it time to look to the future and make some tough decisions at the trade deadline? Let me know in the comments below. Now, there's a lot to unpack as we head into a pivotal week. First, some good news and some bad news regarding our defensive anchor, Jevon Holland. As everyone knows, the Dolphins have been battling injuries this season, with Tua just returning to the lineup. But now, as we prepare for a pivotal matchup against the Buffalo Bills, Jevon Holland has returned to the injury report. Holland injured his knee in the game against the Arizona Cardinals last week, and head coach Mike McDaniel has weighed in, saying the injury is not considered serious enough to require surgery or extended time off. That's the good news. However, his status for Week 9 remains up in the air. McDaniel was cautious, explaining that it's too early to say whether Holland will be ready to play by Sunday. He doesn't want to make any promises until he sees how Holland responds in the coming days. Why does this matter so much? Well, the Dolphins are in a do-or-die situation. At 2-5, every game is crucial, and losing a leader like Holland for even a single week could have serious implications. Holland's presence in the secondary is crucial, especially against a strong Bills offense. We need him there, but it's still unclear if he'll be able to go. We'll have a better sense of his availability in the coming days. If he's able to practice without limitations, there's a chance he could suit up, but for now, it's a day-to-day situation. Interestingly, there's been talk of Holland possibly being on the trading block. With the trade deadline fast approaching and Holland's contract expiring after this season, the Dolphins could consider moving him for future draft picks if they're not committed to re-signing him. It's hard to imagine the defense without him, but if they don't see him as part of their long-term plans, a trade could be an option. However, trading a key defensive player mid-season isn't ideal, especially when facing teams like Buffalo. In other news, the Dolphins made a move on the offensive line, releasing offensive tackle Anderson Hardy from the practice squad. Hardy, who joined us in August after being released by the Steelers, is with the Dolphins as a depth piece on the practice squad. A former starter at Appalachian State and a promising All-Sun Belt player, he bounced back a bit, spending his rookie year with the Chiefs before heading to Miami. While he didn't appear in a regular season game, he provided some depth during a season where we needed every ounce of support on that offensive line. Hardy's release now leaves the Dolphins with a spot to fill on the practice squad. We still have 3 offensive linemen on the roster, tackles Baron Matos and Jackson Carman, and guard Chasen Hines. With room to add another player, it will be interesting to see how the Dolphins choose to use this opening, especially as we head into the second half of the season. Matos, as part of the International Player Pathway program, doesn't count toward the 16-man limit, so there's a bit of flexibility there. Alright, Dolphins fans, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Holland's injury and the possibility of him sitting out this week? Should the team consider a trade if they're not planning on re-signing him, or is his on-field leadership too valuable right now? And what about the move with Hardy? Do you think the Dolphins will bring in someone new to fill that spot on the practice squad, or are we ready with the depth we have? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications to be the first to know when we release new content. Thanks for watching, and let's keep our fingers crossed for a big win on Sunday. Fins up!